A warm December night settles over Miami. The lights of the city glow like distant stars as Eastern Airlines Flight 401, a wide-body Lockheed L-1011, climbs steadily into the sky. Inside the cockpit, everything feels routine. Captain Robert Loft, First Officer Albert Stockstill, and Second Officer Don Repo have flown this aircraft countless times. They know its sounds, its heartbeat, its rhythm. Passengers relax into their seats. Some talk softly, some sleep, some press their faces to the windows, watching the world shrink beneath them. No one knows that in less than an hour, the night will swallow this aircraft whole. Flight 401 is heading for Miami. A quick, familiar hop. The crew is calm. The cabin crew prepares for landing. There is no turbulence, no warnings, no hint that something is about to go terribly wrong. In the cockpit, a small detail catches the crew's attention. A tiny green light, a landing gear indicator that should be glowing confidently, stays dark. The nose gear light refuses to illuminate. It's a minor issue, probably a burned-out bulb, a simple replacement, but procedure is procedure. The captain calls for the checklist. The crew begins troubleshooting. One light, one bulb, one distraction. The autopilot holds the aircraft steady at 2,000 feet as the jet circles over the Everglades. Below them is a black ocean of swamp. No lights, no landmarks, just endless darkness. What no one realizes is that the autopilot, meant to keep the plane level, has quietly disconnected. The aircraft begins a slow, deadly descent, almost imperceptible. Inside the cabin, nothing feels wrong. The passengers sit peacefully, unaware they are sinking toward the earth. In the cockpit, eyes stay locked on the gear problem. Hands search for a solution. The night outside remains silent. A routine landing has become a ticking clock. And Flight 401 is already falling. The cockpit glows with soft instrument lights. Dials hum. Switches click softly beneath the pilot's fingers. Yet the one thing they need, the green confirmation light for the nose gear, is still dark. Captain Loft frowns. It's probably just the bulb, he mutters, leaning closer. First Officer Stockstill pulls the light assembly, twisting it free. The tiny bulb is stubborn. He tries another. Still nothing. The indicator refuses to glow. A simple problem becomes a puzzle. The pilot's attention narrows. Their world shrinks to 1 square inch of plastic and wiring. They don't notice the slight vibration in the controls. They don't notice the altimeter needle beginning to drift down. Just a hair, just a whisper. The aircraft is descending, slowly, steadily, quietly. But in the cockpit, all eyes are locked on the unlit indicator. Let's check the gear visually, Captain Loft says. The idea seems logical. They instruct the flight engineer, Don Repo, to go down into the electronics bay beneath the cockpit. He climbs through the hatch, kneeling in the narrow space with a flashlight, trying to look through a tiny periscope built to check the nose gear. But Repo can't see it. Nothing, he calls up. Everything is dark, down here too. Back in the cockpit, Stockstill tries again to adjust the gear lever. He leans forward, his elbow brushing the yoke. Just a small bump. But on this night, a small bump is all it takes. The autopilot pitches the aircraft into a gentle descent. The mode switches without the crew noticing. The warning chime stays silent. The altimeter continues its slow fall. 100 feet every few seconds, deeper into the black Everglades. Outside, there is nothing but darkness. Inside, there is nothing but distraction. Eastern Airlines Flight 401 drifts lower, and no one sees it happening. Eastern Airlines Flight 401 circles quietly over Miami, a wide arc through moonless air. Passengers feel only a gentle turn, unaware that the cockpit crew is locked into a tightening tunnel of focus. Below 10,000 feet, The Everglades stretch out like an ocean of black water and sawgrass. No lights, no towns, no reflections, just darkness. A perfect void, waiting. Inside, the cockpit, the tension grows. Captain Loft is still troubleshooting. Stockstill is still wrestling with the stubborn indicator. Repo is still crawling in the avionics bay, trying to catch a glimpse of the nose gear through the tiny scope. 3 experienced aviators, 3 pairs of eyes, but all pointed at the wrong problem. Try the gear again, Loft says. Stockstill pulls, pushes. Nothing. The crew debates possibilities. Faulty wiring, stuck gear, bad sensor. Their voices overlap, calm but urgent. Each second stretches thinner, pulled tight by concentration. But something else is happening. Something silent, something easy to miss. The altitude tape continues slipping downward. 9,800 feet, 9,600, 9,300. The descent is slow, too slow for the aircraft to shake or groan. The engines remain smooth. The passengers continue reading, chatting, dozing. A few glance out the windows at pure black. No one feels danger. In the cockpit, Stockstill suddenly glances at the altimeter. "Hey, we did something to the altitude," he says. It's the first sign of awareness. A crack of light in the darkness. But the crew doesn't grasp the urgency yet. They think it's a minor drift. A small correction to make. What they don't know, what they can't know, is that the autopilot is no longer holding altitude at all. That tiny elbow bump earlier? It nudged the yoke. The autopilot quietly switched modes. The aircraft has been descending, continuously, for minutes. They are dropping straight into the Everglades, and time is running out. A faint chime echoes in the cockpit, then another. Subtle warnings, not alarms, just quiet reminders. They go unnoticed under the crew's ongoing discussion about the landing gear light. The radios murmur with routine chatter from Miami approach. Everything feels normal. Everything sounds normal, but nothing is normal. Eastern Airlines, Flight 401, is now drifting through 8,000 feet, the descent masked by soft darkness and a flawless aircraft vibration profile. There is no rumble, no buffet, no urgent stall tone, just the quiet hum of 3 engines and the calm voices of professionals who don't know they are falling. Captain Loft leans forward, squints at the panel, and sighs. This damn light. Stockstill checks another circuit breaker. Repo is still in the bay, shining a small flashlight upward. The teamwork is smooth, practiced, disciplined. The crew is doing everything right, except flying the airplane. A sterile silence settles between their words. It's the kind of silence that creeps in during deep focus, the kind that hides danger in plain sight. And outside the cockpit windows? Nothing. Not a landmark. Not a horizon. The Everglades at night offer no clues, no warnings. Stockstill glances at the altimeter again. We're still down at... His voice trails. Loft looks. What? We're at 2,000 feet. Stockstill says. Confusion rising. A beat of stillness. A crack in their composure. Check your altitude. Stockstill repeats. Louder this time. Loft reacts instantly, grabbing the controls. Hey, what's happening here? But the silence has already done its damage. They are too low, too fast, too unaware. Outside, a faint shimmer of water finally appears beneath them. The Everglades seconds away. The altimeter unwinds like a clock in freefall. 2,000 feet, 1,800, 1,600. But inside the cockpit, the crew is still trying to piece together what went wrong. Their eyes jump between gauges, attitude, vertical speed, airspeed, but the numbers don't match what they expect. The autopilot should be holding altitude. The aircraft should be level. And yet something is terribly off. Stockstill leans closer to his instruments. "Captain, we're still descending." His voice is tight now, urgent. Loft finally snaps fully to the situation. "Not possible," he mutters and pulls back on the control column. The nose rises slightly, but far too late. A Boeing L-1011 is a powerful giant. But giants don't stop mid-fall. Miami approach calls again. Eastern 401. "How are things coming along out there?" No one answers. No one has time. Inside the cabin, passengers feel a strange heaviness. A few look up. Some lean into the aisle. A woman whispers, "We're going down." But most think it's just turbulence. Just another bump on a smooth flight home. In the cockpit, Stockstill suddenly sees it. The black water of the Everglades, reflecting the landing lights. "Captain, we're at..." The altimeter flashes past 900 feet, then 700, then 500. Loft pulls with both hands. "Come on, come on." The engines roar as the aircraft struggles to climb. The ground rushes up in silence. Then, a soft chirp from the altitude alert. A warning that comes too late. At 227 knots, Flight 401's belly skims the swamp. The right wingtip catches first, tearing through sawgrass like a blade. The fuselage shatters upon impact. The cabin erupts into chaos. A routine flight vanishes into darkness. The impact is violent, so sudden, so brutal, that most passengers never see it coming. Eastern Airlines, Flight 401 slams into the black swamp with the force of a freight train. The fuselage breaks apart, scattering metal and seats across the marsh. The iconic TriStar, once sleek and graceful, splinters into fragments that hiss and steam in the humid night air. Inside the cabin, everything turns into a whirlwind of motion. Ceiling panels collapse. Rows of seats shear free. Passengers are thrown forward, tangled in straps, debris, and darkness. Some cry out. Others are silent. The forward section breaks apart from the rest of the plane, flipping violently before settling deep in the marsh. Water surges in, cold and murky, flooding the shattered interior. And then, after the roar of destruction, silence. The Everglades swallow sound like a graveyard. No lights, no roads, no landmarks, just endless swamp, stretching miles in every direction. But survivors remain, dazed, injured, soaked in fuel and mud. People begin to stir. A woman cries for her child. A man crawls through waist-deep water shouting for help. A flight attendant, burned and bleeding, pulls two passengers onto a floating piece of wreckage. In the darkness, faint voices rise. "Help! Over here! Please!" A few survivors notice glowing lights, fireflies drifting between the wreckage, blinking like tiny signals from another world. For a moment, it feels surreal, beautiful, and terrifying. Miles away, Miami ATC still calls into the void. Eastern 401 radio check. No response. The first hint of disaster reaches authorities when an airboat operator reports hearing a massive explosion somewhere deep in the marsh. Search teams are scrambled. Helicopters roar into the night sky. Somewhere below them, hundreds of lives hang on minutes. The first rescue helicopter spots it, a faint flicker of reflective metal beneath the darkness. Then another, and another. The swamp stretches endlessly, but there in the distance is a wound in the earth, a scar of torn metal and shattered aluminum, glowing faintly under the searchlight. As the chopper descends, the scene becomes horrifyingly clear. Bodies, seat cushions, floating debris, people clinging to wreckage in waist-deep water, barely able to lift their heads. Rescuers jump into the swamp without hesitation. The mud swallows their boots. Mosquitoes swarm in clouds. The water is cold and foul, but there is no time to think, only to act. "Call out if you can hear me," one rescuer shouts. A weak voice answers. "Here, please." They find a flight attendant, Noreen, half submerged and barely conscious. Her uniform is torn, Her legs are trapped under twisted metal, yet when she opens her eyes, the first thing she asks is, "Are the passengers okay?" Nearby, a man grips the floating remnants of a seat cushion. His knuckles are white. He can barely speak. Every breath shakes with shock. He survived the impact, but the cold water is stealing his strength. Minute by minute, rescuers move from voice to voice. Some cries fade before they arrive. Others stay strong, giving them hope. A baby is found alive, cradled in its mother's arms. She didn't make it, but her final act saved her child. By dawn, dozens of survivors are pulled from the swamp. Exhausted, shivering, covered in mud and jet fuel, they stare back at the wreckage, trying to comprehend what happened. Behind them, the sun rises over the Everglades, illuminating the debris field for the first time. And what investigators will see in that morning light will change aviation forever. When investigators arrive at the crash site, the sun is barely above the horizon. What they find is astonishing. The TriStar's engines are still largely intact, the wings relatively undamaged, and the fuselage broken, but not obliterated. This wasn't a mid-air explosion. This wasn't a mechanical catastrophe. It was something else. Inside the cockpit wreckage, investigators uncover data from the flight recorders. Every second is preserved. The calm discussion, the confusion, the silence, the descent. And as they piece the puzzle together, one truth becomes painfully clear. The aircraft was fully functional. The crew simply didn't see the altitude dropping. The landing gear light had distracted them. 3 experienced aviators, a captain with 30,000 hours, a respected first officer, and a flight engineer who knew the TriStar inside and out, were all focused on a tiny bulb, the size of a fingernail. While they debated whether the light was faulty, while they sent the flight engineer crawling below the cockpit, while the captain nudged the yoke to keep the plane steady, no one realized the autopilot had quietly clicked off. The aircraft had begun a slow, steady descent. A descent so gentle, so subtle, that no one felt it. They weren't flying the plane. They weren't monitoring it. The cockpit had fallen into a trap, a freeze of attention known as task fixation. When the truth became public, it shook the aviation world. How could such a small distraction lead to such a massive tragedy? The answer was brutal, because humans are human, and even the best can make fatal mistakes. This crash forced airlines worldwide to change the way crews worked. Crew Resource Management (CRM) was born here. Communication protocols were rewritten, workloads rebalanced, hierarchy flattened. Monitoring became just as important as flying. Eastern Airlines Flight 401 didn't just reveal a flaw in a cockpit. It revealed a flaw in human nature and gave aviation the tools to fix it. A tragedy in the swamp became a turning point in the sky. If this story moved you, if it made you think about how small moments shape massive outcomes, then don't let it end here. Stories like this take days to research and hours to craft. Your support is what keeps them alive. So if you want more deeply human, cinematic breakdowns of aviation history, hit the like button so YouTube knows these stories matter. Subscribe so you never miss the next chapter in the skies. And share this video with someone who loves aviation, because these lessons were written in lives and they deserve to be remembered. Thank you for watching, and as always, stay curious, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next story.